Anna's fingers froze mid-stitch when a trembling hand clutched hers. Queen's Farmer's Market. "Teach us," begged a woman with paprika still dusting her apron. Polish, maybe, like Anna 30 years back. Skeins of wool tumbled from Anna's tote, vibrant as languages swirling around them. 55 and stubborn as dropped stitches. She'd buried those needles after mastering English. But here was fam she didn't know she had. Newcomers with loneliness coiled tight as untangled yarn. That night, her cramped apartment became a circle of Anna's fingers froze mid-stitch when a trembling hand brushed hers. Not with hesitation, but hunger. Across from her sat Layla, whose dark eyes mirrored Anna's own first winter here, decades ago. That gnawing fear of unraveling before ever belonging. Wool skeins piled between them, still smelling of sheep's lanolin from her childhood village. Back then, knitting meant socks for frostbitten toes. Now, each stitch was a lifeline thrown across languages. Creator chuckled as her needle slipped. Age hadn't steadied her hands, just her heart. Farmers' markets became their battleground. Layla fumbled with chunky scarves, pricing tags upside down, while woman nudged her toward maple syrup vendor. "Fam," she'd whisper, pointing to golden jugs. "This is stuff." Layla's laughter, tentative as a dropped stitch, slowly wove into city's hum. Anna's deepest fear had always been fading, not into obscurity, but into silence. Like yarn left too long in a drawer, brittle with disuse. But here, among newcomers clutching needles like compasses, she wasn't just remembering her past. She was knitting it into theirs. By spring, Layla's scarves sold faster than apple cider donuts. Anna watched her haggle in broken English, wool looped proudly around her shoulders. No one needed to translate pride. Anna's fingers froze mid-stitch when a trembling hand reached over her shoulder, plucking a dropped needle from her lap. Behind her stood a woman with silver-streaked curls and a grin that crinkled her eyes into crescent moons. "Mira," she murmured, pressing needle back into Anna's palm with a warmth that needed no translation. That was how she met Lourdes, Puerto Rican by way of Brooklyn, knitter by way of Abuela's stubborn insistence, who didn't ask why a 55-year-old Lithuanian woman hunched over a half-finished scarf in a Queen's laundromat. Instead, Lourdes hauled her to a folding table where 3 others clicked needles in sync, their laughter weaving through hum of dryers. "Fam," Lourdes announced, nudging woman into a chair. "This one's got tension tighter than subway straps." Skeins piled between them like unspoken stories. Anna's wool, once just a practical shield against New York winters, became a bridge. She learned to knit looser, both stitches and shoulders, as Lourdes taught her to turn mistakes into motifs. A slipped stitch here, an accidental bobble there. Character, mommy, not flaws. Farmers' market trips doubled as yarn hunts, where woman marveled camelid blends from Peru, undyed merino from upstate. Each fiber carried weight of a homeland, yet softened in her hands into something new. Months later, when a fresh-faced Syrian teen hesitated their circle's edge, woman didn't pause. She tugged out a chair, passed over a skein of sunflower yellow wool, and let her own scarred hands demonstrate first row. No words, just motion, universal language of you belong here. That night, weaving ends into her latest project, Anna realized wool wasn't just warmth. It was resilience unraveled and remade, stitch by stubborn stitch. Anna's fingers froze mid-stitch when a trembling hand reached for her wool skein. Not to take, but to mimic. Across from her sat Layla, a woman whose laugh still carried Damascus's sun, even as Brooklyn's winter gnawed her sandals. Woman recognized that grip, all determination and shaky hope. She'd held it herself 2 decades ago, clutching English flashcards like lifelines. Now 55 and stubborn as her mother's cast-iron skillet, she refused to let newcomers fumble alone. Her knitting circle met in a church basement that smelled of old hymnals and fresh bread from Yemeni bakery next door. Skeins piled high as rent bills, each not a silent rebellion against isolation. Anna's fam, women from Oaxaca, Minsk, Seoul, unraveled frustrations with every purl. Layla struggled with ribbing, her stitches tight as a clenched jaw. She nudged her wrist, showing how loose loops made room for mistakes. Like life, she muttered, earning a snort from Marta, who'd once sewn a sleeve inside out and called it avant-garde. Farmers' markets became their battleground. She bartered scarves for Persian saffron, her accent butchering Farsi but her grin disarming vendors. One frosty morning, she spotted Layla hesitating before a maple syrup stand, flustered by slang flying faster than subway rats. Anna elbowed her forward, tossing a hand-knit beanie cashier. "Trade you for syrup and a lesson in on fleek." Layla's chuckle unfurled like yarn from a fresh skein. Doubt crept in when city noise drowned her voice. Was this enough? Then she'd find a note tucked between needles. "Your stitches hold me together." Anna's hands kept moving, weaving belonging one row at a time. Wool became her weapon, its tangles proof they weren't just surviving. They were crafting something new. Anna's fingers froze mid-stitch when a trembling hand reached for her wool skein. Not to take, but to mimic. Across from her sat Luz, a newcomer from Oaxaca, eyes wide as she fumbled with needles, her first row a chaotic tangle. Around them, 12 women hunched over yarn in that cramped Queens Community Center, their stitches uneven but determined. Anna hid a grin. 55 and stubborn as dropped stitches. She'd bet her last skein this would work. 3 months prior, she'd been one scoffing idea. Knitting circles for assimilation? Please. Yet here she was, watching Luz's shoulders loosen as she mastered a purl, her Spanish murmurs blending with Farsi laughter from across table. Anna's gutsy move, ditching her solo projects to teach farmers markets, had started as a fluke. But when a tourist snapped a shot of her rainbow-draped booth, captioning it NYC's coziest revolution, post blazed through local feeds. Suddenly, city officials slid into her DMs, offering space. Skeptics became regulars there who'd pay for this, shifting to how'd you know we needed it? Tonight, though, was different. A reporter lurked by door, pen poised. Anna's pulse kicked. Not from nerves, but wild certainty this was her start. She tugged wool skein from her bag, its frayed and a relic of her own first lonely winter in Brooklyn decades ago. Holding it high, she announced, no, declared, this skein would begin their next project. A communal blanket, each square a story. Room erupted. Even Mrs. Kowalski, Polish widow who'd spent weeks side-eyeing yarn nonsense, dropped her cane to clap. Later, as Anna rolled up leftover yarn, Luz pressed a note into her palm. Gracias for seeing me. Outside, sleet glazed sidewalks, but warmth hummed in her chest. This wasn't just about stitches. It was about showing up, tangling threads into something whole. And damn if that didn't feel like magic. Anna's fingers froze mid-stitch when a trembling hand reached for her wool skein. Sun-faded, frayed edges, just like her first year in New York. Across from her sat Layla, 60, fresh from Damascus, clutching yarn like a lifeline. She grinned. Drop-stitch disaster waiting to happen? Perfect. Messy beats lonely. That skein became their compass. Week after week, Anna's knitting circle grew. Ukrainian grandmothers purling through grief, Ecuadorian teens trading slang with Brooklyn grandmas over chunky scarves. Farmers' markets supplied wool dyed like city sunsets. Mistakes turned into inside jokes. Frogging again. Fam? That's just confetti stitches. One November evening, Layla presented creator with a sweater. Vibrant zigzags, uneven seams, sleeves slightly lopsided. Our chaos stitched together, she said. Anna slipped it on, warmth spreading beyond wool. That skein, once her solitary comfort, now wove through a dozen lives, each loop a bridge. 55 never felt so bold. Grab your needles, craft connection, one stitch at a time.